think we're live. Oh, there's a bit of an echo. I don't know if that's me or is it? I think it's gone now. Is it? Yeah. Okay. Okay, we'll wait maybe a minute or two longer just to let people come in, because I think they were joining with a welcome screen. So I want to make sure that everyone can join that wants to. Fab. Hi, Jane. Yeah, if people want to introduce themselves in the chat, that would be great. And start sort of saying hello, what you do, any sort of impact related stuff that you want to tell us about, that'd be great. Hi, everyone. Okay, I think let's get started, because we'll do some introductions and then we can go from there, and people can join as and when. And then if they want to watch the recording for introductions again, then they can. So welcome, everyone. I can't see anyone, so please do use the chat and we can get to know you through that. Thanks so much to everyone for being patient while this has been postponed. I was quite poorly a couple of weeks ago, so thanks for changing your calendars to be here. I'm Nichola Telford. Hopefully a lot of you will already know me, and I'm CEO and co-founder at ViewsForChange. For those of you that don't know, ViewsForChange is an impact platform that enables brands to integrate and attribute charitable donations and impact into their marketing activity, which is unlocked when consumers take action on their advertising and marketing campaigns. And we're on a mission to ensure that impact is a strong incentive for behavior change for consumers. And I'm really excited to be joined by some really awesome panelists today. And what I should say before we do introductions is that all of the questions that we're going to cover today have been asked by attendees or registrants to this webinar. So hopefully you'll go away with some really great sort of actionable insights. But I think we should start with some introductions. So I'm going to start with Alicia, then Steph, then Lena, then Charlie. If you can just say hello, tell us a bit about yourself, what impact means to you, and then we can go from there.
I'm on mute. Amazing. I've been in this situation for 2 years and I still do it. Anyway, that's done now. So hi, I'm Alicia. I don't know how to use a mute button. I'm the co-founder of the Future Kind Collective, and we help companies to grow faster and more sustainably through defining their purpose, designing their cultures, and ultimately growing their impact. And what impact means to me is, impact is about having that strong effect on something, on someone. And in this day and age, it's really important that effect is meaningful, intentional, and shifts a positive change in the world. And impact for us can only really, truly be significant if it considers people, planet, and society. And it needs to be deliberate, conscious, and really purposeful. And for us, what's really important is it should not just be external or internal. It has to be both of those elements to truly drive impact. So yeah, that's me. And it's great to be here.
Cool. So I'm Steph. I'm the founder and director of Hello Earth Agency. So we are a direct-to-consumer performance agency. We are also B Corp, but ultimately for us and our mission is how we deliver digital performance for profit whilst also measuring impact for purpose. So for me, impact really means the effect that your business has on the world and with the people within your sphere of influence. So from a business perspective, this could either be your employees or your customers, and that really depends, I guess, on your servitude. And then just on off the back of that, so to have an impact, you must have a purpose, and then to have a purpose, you must stand for something, and ultimately that impact is the output of that purpose.
Oh, sorry, it's me. So hi, I'm Lena. I'm the Senior Marketing Manager at Moon Cup. We are the manufacturers of the first silicone menstrual cup in the world, and we are the #1 brand for sustainable periods in the UK. For us, impact is really the reason we exist. So our company was founded to basically give people with periods an alternative for traditional tampons and pads, which obviously contain a lot of plastic. And it's the kind of the product, the Mooncup product, is really in the heart of the impact for us. But obviously, we do a lot of other stuff, and we are very picky who we work with, and we do a lot of charity work and so on. But I'm sure we'll talk about that a little bit later. It's a big year for us at Mooncup this year. It's our 20th birthday, so we've been doing this quite a long time. And we've also just hit a bit of a milestone, bit of an impact milestone. And basically, a few months ago, all the real Mooncup users around the world have averted over 3 billion single-use period products from landfill, beaches, waterways. So that's amazing achievement. So it's a big year for us. I'm really looking forward to this webinar as well.
That's amazing. Congratulations. I'm Charlie, and I spent a decade working in marketing and communications agencies in Sydney, Australia, before I came back to the UK in 2017. And now I spend most of my time having conversations with the founders and CEOs of aspiring impact brands in my role as editor at Earth Collective, and also as the host of the podcast Easy Being Green, Lessons in Sustainable Business. I'm also currently writing a course for the Cambridge Institute for Sustainability Leadership on sustainability in marketing, which will be out in September if anyone's interested. And for me, impact is the way our actions intentionally and unintentionally change the world around us in either a positive or a negative way. And I think that when we are mindful about the impacts we have on people and on the planet, I believe that our actions will result in more intentionally positive impacts and less unintentionally negative impacts.
Amazing. Thanks so much for being here, guys. Firstly, it's really great to have a panel of all women. And that was completely unintentional, but we've had some unintentional positive impact there. So that's really great. And then secondly, just a really quick one. I'm probably going to be like sipping from my sippy cup for like some of these times, because I saw Alicia laughing at me just then. So I just wanted to say that that's what that is. It's a child's sippy cup. Okay, just warning. All right, so in terms of for everyone else that's here, thanks so much for introducing yourselves on the chat. Please do use this, ask questions throughout. I'm going to be like really strict to make sure that we have some time for Q&A at the end. If you want to be invited on stage to ask questions at the end, then please put that in your comment too, and I can do that, I think, if I can work out how that works. But I think for now, let's sort of crack on, and hopefully this will be a really useful discussion for you. So we're going to start with a big one, but it underpins everything that we're going to talk about. So one of the questions that we've been asked is, what is the business case for becoming an impact brand? And I recently read quite a concerning article in the Financial Times that talked about woke capitalism, which basically stated there wasn't a business case for ESG, CSR, or sustainability in business. So I'd love for this conversation to completely counteract that, but I'll let you guys discuss it. But I think, Lena, it'd be great to come to you first on this one, with Mooncup being such a brand with impact literally built into its core. So I'd love to hear what you think.
Yeah, I mean, I guess with us, really, when Mooncup was first founded, it wasn't really founded with the profit in mind, to be honest. It was just kind of, it was a very kind of unbusiness-like business to be founded. But obviously we've grown over the 20 years. And I think there's also, to be fair, I think there is, you perhaps should be making difference who you're targeting with your business. And I think it is no doubt that it's more important that your business is sustainable if you're targeting younger demographics and if you're really looking to future-proof your company, because I think we all know that younger people, particularly millennials and Gen Z, and we're talking about like up to 40-year-olds now, so all the millennials are now 40. We know that they are really, really interested, and environment is really important to them. And we know that they are ready to pay more for a product or service that is ethically produced. So I think that is, first of all, important to recognize. I think also for a company while we are in this modern world where some people call it cancel culture, I think it's also important that you run a clean business, especially as a small business. You really don't want to get caught with unsustainable business practices. So I think that is it is essentially future-proofing a business in that way. And we know that there's a lot of greenwashing and woke-washing around, but the kind of legislation and the rules and controls are tightening around that as well. So you better be ahead of the curve and really build your business ethically from the start. And I think, because I was thinking about this from various points of view in our business as well, and I think something that comes in there as well with us, and I think with a lot of companies, but you don't perhaps always think of it that way, is customer service. And like basically, if you are really transparent and offer a good pre and post purchase customer service, and are kind of clear who your product or service is good for and who not, especially this is more important obviously with the products, you will reduce waste. And this is something that for us is it's basically really important that we don't create a lot of unused menstrual cups. And we know that it's a bit of a learning curve for some people to switch from traditional products. And that is one of the reasons why we started like really top-notch customer service, which is run by medical professionals, to kind of try to avoid that kind of wastage as well. And we all know that good customer, happy customer makes a really good marketeer for your business as well. And I think in general, if you, as a sustainable business, there's more goodwill from the customers towards you, and they are more likely to kind of spread the word about you. And I think that is real gold for businesses and marketeers in this world where everything's very, very cluttered. But those are some of the reasons, obviously. And then, of course, people want to work, are more likely to want to work for ethical companies. So basically, you'll be able to attract better talent, really, and you sleep your nights better as well.
And in the current climate, and in the current climate, attracting talent is not easy. So if you can resonate with their needs and what's important to them, I think that's really great. Pulling on your point from the consumer perspective, Charlie, I think you've got some research and you've done quite a lot of work around consumer behavior in this space. So I'd be interested from a business case perspective.
Yeah, so I just wanted to flag some research. It was a few years ago and it was done by BBMG, which is a branding consultancy, and GlobeScan, which is a global insights firm. And they looked into consumer behavior around sustainability retail decisions. And it was interesting what you were just saying there, Lena, because that aligns so much with this research. There's kind of 4 categories. And the first one is your diehard sustainability conscious consumers who go out there and shop and they know exactly what they're looking for. And that's it. That's all they're going to buy. Then there's people who prioritize price and quality of a product first and actually look at sustainability last. And then there are people who are indifferent. But the 4th category of consumer that's really interesting is what GlobeScan and BBMG categorize as aspirational consumers. And what's interesting about these guys is that they make up 39% of the global public of all ages, but they're particularly prevalent in emerging markets. And what categorizes them, what makes them who they are, is people. Now, probably we might, relate to this. This might resonate with us, because they're consumers who desire abundance without waste. They value honesty and authenticity, but they know that this requires imperfection. They definitely do not tolerate greenwashing. They'll favor homegrown and locally sourced products, and they really like to know who's made their products. And probably the most important for people on the webinar today is that they choose impact brands that want to help solve the world's toughest problems. And I thought it's really interesting what GlobeScan said about aspirationals. It said that they are connecting the right thing to do with the cool thing to do. So take from that what you will.
I mean, I feel like, can you send me those research pieces, please? Because I think they'd be really useful for us in the work that we're doing. I mean, I feel convinced, but I mean, obviously, we're all coming from a perspective of already understanding this and, you know, being a part of this world. I don't know if you, Alicia or Steph, have anything to add, or whether we want to move on to the next meaty question.
I think from my perspective, what's really interesting to what Lena and Charlie were just talking about is all of that has also shifted even further since the pandemic as well, because people have really reflected on what is meaningful to them. So you've seen sort of the Great Resignation, or whatever name you want to give it, but people are reevaluating what is meaningful to them and their own lives. And with that shift and adjustment, the fact that that article is a recent article, Nick, that you referenced, is kind of madness to me, because we can see everywhere that people are saying, okay, my job doesn't align with my values, it doesn't align with my purpose, I need to find something different. And it's okay if it means that, you know, salary becomes less of a driver for that. So I think it's really about kind of, there's a real mind shift that's happening as well, just beyond organizations, but actually personally for people too, that's really impacting kind of what impact brands can do and deliver.
Yeah. And I mean, with that, I'm like definitely not going to go down this road from like a political perspective, but like the divisive world we live in is only sort of pushing those things further and further into sort of one camp or another. So yeah, I'm actually just not even going to start that. Steph, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. And this is probably a real life example, is when we started to change a number of the things that we were doing within our agency and how we measure impact and what our cultural shifts were, we actually saw a shift in the number of applicants and the quality of applicants wanting to make that move into more of an impact-driven brand. And that, to me, has been the biggest moment where I've thought, I'm seeing this shift actually happen within our business. So it's definitely an interesting time for sure.
Yeah, I agree. So, I mean, we've put the world to rights, and I think we've probably given a pretty good case for creating impact or embedding impact into your brand and also your culture. So a bit more on the how we do that. I think where a good place to start would be one of the questions that we were asked is, how do you find purpose in your business? And I feel like, Alicia, this is probably best to come to you first. This is literally what you do. So I'll take it away.
So in terms of, you know, it's an interesting question of like, how do you find purpose in your business? Because ultimately purpose is about why you exist or why something exists. So every founder set up a business for one reason or another, and there was a why that was driving them. Whether that's articulated is often a different story, right? I think we can all speak as you know, business leaders, that we've had an idea, we run with it, but we rarely take necessarily that reflection point to say, why did we do this? Or, you know, what is it that sort of ties this all together? Which is all well and good when it's you as an individual, but when you start to grow your team, it becomes so fundamental, because it can no longer just be in the founder's brain. It has to be really well communicated and embedded across your organization. So we have this quite a lot of the time, right? Organizations are going back and saying, hang on a minute, why did we do this in the first place? And is everything we're doing aligning to why we started in the first place? Because often you start growing and you get to a certain size and suddenly you go, whoa, hang on a minute, there's stuff happening here. Someone's saying we do this, someone's saying we do that. They're trying to hit that deadline, I'm trying to hit this deadline, priorities shift, and you kind of need to come back to the drawing board. And so it's an interesting question when we talk to organizations, all kinds of different sizes, but particularly in sort of early stages and scale ups, where they go, actually, we really need to define this. And so how we help companies do that is we sort of dig into what are those core questions. And there's 4 of them that we really ask. One of them is based around moral beliefs. So what are the beliefs that drive you and your organization to do what you do? What's the world need that you're responding to? So the needs of people, society, and planet. And then what are your core strengths? So what do you do better than anyone else? Which sometimes we're a bit humble in that, but we can all do something really well. And then we need to be able to talk about that. And finally, what are our value drivers? Now, value drivers can be seen as monetary, so financial drivers, but it's also thinking about societal drivers, emotional drivers that basically underpin why you exist as a brand and as an organization. And when you can really articulate each of these different areas, you can really get your team aligned around why you exist as a business. It helps you align your priorities, your goals. It creates those better connections with your customers, and ultimately helps a more sustainable growth path. But it can't just be a statement. And I think that's something we have to be really clear about, because we get a lot of bad press around purpose being a bit fluffy. And to your point, Steph, about actually when you see that in action, it can really shift a lot of change as well. So if you can embed that into how it shows up in your values, how you behave, your culture, what you do and how you show up, that's when you really see the change both internally and externally. And that's how you can really find your purpose and what it means to your business. I could talk about this for hours, so that was me trying to
I think you did a great job. We worked with Alicia and the team really early on in our journey at Views for Change. And even though myself and Ozzy, who's my co-founder, had really, really like strong ideas about what that looked like, as we started to build that team and as we started to communicate with users and businesses and brands and agencies and the people that we were working with, we found that the stuff that's in your head about your impact and your purpose doesn't always translate externally unless you have that really clear sort of framework for thinking about it. And since we've done that work, I mean, this is just a massive plug for Alicia's work here, but since we've done that work, it gives you such a great framework, not only for how you communicate, but also how you make decisions. So like finding purpose is probably not the right question. It's more about how do you like discover what already like is there for you, and how do you then build that rather than like, trying to slap it on top. Steph, I think you have some thoughts on this as well.
100%. So it's a journey that we've been on with Hello Earth. So obviously we do have a position and we do have a purpose focus, but it is continuously evolving. And I think the key thing for us is probably coming back to what you guys are saying, is having that focus around purpose. So for me and within the business, we never really felt as though we had that aha kind of moment. And we've gone through a journey, and we're continuing to go through a journey of why are we in business? What are we doing this for? And I think with the current like economy and purpose driven businesses, there definitely feels a level of excuse me, expectancy of what purpose can look like. And I think the potentially is comparisons that are happening. So you're looking at other businesses, what's like their kind of purpose driver, and it can become quite difficult or you can get, I guess, lost in that noise. So again, what Alicia was saying in terms of finding out what is the why and how is that specific to your business, and then having a purpose focus is really key. And that is something that we've been trying to continuously evolve with Hello Earth, is what are we doing? How do we measure that? And then how do we constantly challenge ourselves to evolve and push forward with it? And for Hello Earth, I guess that falls into two streams. So one would be our client engagement values and how we measure that, and then also our team values. So the level of, I guess, consumerism and for the brands that we work with, like what's their impact within consumerism, and then how do Hello Earth give back to the team, and then also to the community or the planet as well.
You guys are amazing. Okay, how do we walk the talk consistently? Charlie, I mean, you've spent a lot of time speaking to a lot of people who run businesses or impact brands. What have you found are the sort of key takeaways of how people keep that impact at the forefront of what they're doing?
Absolutely. Well, you could do CISL's Sustainability Marketing online course in September and learn that plug, but I have 3 observations from the amazing businesses that I've had the pleasure of talking with. And firstly, and I think we'll keep on banging on about this probably in today, but the first part of marketing an impact brand effectively, or walking your talk consistently, is going to come down to that thing that Steph and Alicia were just talking about. It's going to be your purpose. And like Alicia was just saying, if it's not well defined and embedded into your strategy, If it's not honest and transparent, attainable, and if you don't really believe in it, it's not going to be authentic, and people are going to see straight through it. The second part is to consider your actual impact of your marketing activities on the 3 Ps of people, planet, and prosperity. And I'm going to use an example that the amazing Dr. Jennifer Kuklinski gave me on a podcast for Easy Being Green. And she told me that one email with one photo emits 50 grams of carbon dioxide equivalent. So if you're sending 5 images per campaign, that's 250 grams of carbon dioxide equivalent per email. And if you have 100 subscribers, that's 25,000 grams, which is the equivalent of driving 60 miles in a petrol powered car. So if you think about your audience, are they going to like that? You know, if we're talking about sustainability diehards, or even those aspirationals that I mentioned earlier, are they going to be a big fan of waste if they're getting emails from you that they don't open? What's happening to that? So that's something to consider. And this is where measuring your impact will come in. I think we might talk about that later, I hope. And the third and final part is, if you do these 2 things consistently, it's going to be authentic to communicate. So you can communicate your purpose in a transparent and authentic way, and you can communicate how you are reporting on and how you're reducing your impact in a really transparent and authentic way.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, there is some mad stats in there. I agree, Natalie, in the chat. And I think as well, there's everything's moved so fast that a lot of people don't actually realize the impact in what they're doing, or the activities that they're having in a business. And we all talked about what impact means to us at the beginning, but I think there's that piece of understanding what negative impacts we can be having without necessarily even realizing we are. And like you said, measuring allows us to understand that. So one of the sort of most famous and big topics at the moment around measuring impact or measuring sustainability and all those sorts of things is the B Corp certification. And we've had an interesting question, which I have a feeling I know which way it's going to go, but I'm just going to put it out there. The question is, does being a B Corp actually work? And so I think maybe Steph, I come to you first as a B Corp. It would be interesting to know what your experience has been and how that's supported you in building a business.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so I definitely do think this comes down to maybe context, but I think for B Corp, I mean, if you're asking from a consumer adoption point of view, I would say it probably doesn't work just yet. I do think that the recognition of B Corp will grow as more brands do adopt it. And I think that will then have an impact from a consumer's perspective. For business to business, I genuinely do think that opens the doors to conversations, group learning, communities, and people having conversations about what they're doing and their impact. And then I think that the core driver for us, and the reason that we really went for our B Corp, was to help guide how we create a better business. And in that sense, I do think it absolutely works. And the reason that I do think B Corp as a movement is really making a shift within business is because it ultimately demonstrates that the link between profits and social gains is completely broken. And therefore businesses, they do need to change. So rather than looking at profit and turnover as success metrics, it focuses on businesses to look at what they need to consider to serve people and the planet alongside the profit piece as well. And the reason that I think that's important and the reason that I think that works is because I think typically, and probably up to the last few years, there has been this global ideology that greater profits within business equals greater social progress or greater economic gains. And I think probably what is happening now is we're in a moment of a juxtaposition or a crossroads where you have the old thinking where people want more and they want it for less, or they want to build quicker wealth or whatever that looks like without the time or everything else that goes with it. And then you also have on the other hand where people are wanting to carve better business, and that is the new needed thinking. I think acting more responsible to the planet and the people, and where profit meets purpose and measuring those equally is for me where B Corp really sort of stands out. So yeah, they're kind of my key thoughts on whether it works.
Nice. We've just become a B Corp pending business because we're still young, so we don't get the chance to do our full certification yet. But we feel like it's like all the things you just said, and it's just a great framework for us as well for good governance. And actually, I shared a stat the other day, just for anyone that's panicking about the upcoming recession, that certified B Corps were 64% more likely to survive the 2008-2009 recession. And generally speaking, that was down to good governance, not like this sort of growth and profit above all else mindset. So they don't crash in the same way that other businesses do. But also they make really good suppliers, especially if depends what type of business you are. But because of that good governance, they make really good suppliers. So people are more likely to continue working with them throughout times of trouble. So yeah, just another case for B Corp from my perspective. Lena, you're working on your B Corp certification, is that right? How are you finding that? What was the reason why you went for that? All of those
yeah,
questions.
that's right. I mean, we have a long history with the ethical certifications. We were the first period product to become a period product manufacturer to become an ethical business certified, and we've been vegan certified since 2010. So we have a history with this, and obviously B Corp is a kind of a natural certification for us to go for. It's definitely, we've seen it become more acknowledged among trade and wholesalers, but I think our research kind of shows that the customers don't know much about it yet, but I'm sure that will change as well. So it's not really for that kind of end consumer marketing reasons that we are doing it. But I think definitely in B2B, it's getting pretty well known, and we definitely look at, when we choose suppliers, we look at their ethical credits every time. And as you said, it's been brilliant to kind of once again kind of look at your business and how you operate and how you could do better. And I think from the marketing point of view, that is something that you get from the whole process. You kind of get those talking points, and because it does make you measure your impact in many ways, it kind of gives you those stats as well to talk about beyond the actual certification.
Definitely. This is sort of part of the same question, because obviously B Corp is centered around the idea that profit and purpose should be aligned, and have a triple bottom line and all those sorts of things. But this question is around, I mean, we've kind of answered this already, so we may just like skip over this one, but how does profit fit into the picture for impact brands? And I actually think this is quite an important one, because and I find this as a company that's also raised investment, and with the added sort of pressure from some, like support from others, around maximizing financial gain and also creating an impact. And the way we've built our business is to try and make sure that they're in lockstep, so they don't move apart from one another. But obviously for lots of people that isn't entirely possible, because they don't necessarily have, like, they're not necessarily doing something that can operate like that. So yeah, I don't know if anyone has any thoughts. I haven't got any sort of specific person to go to, so I don't know if anyone wants to just jump in and have any thoughts around how profit fits into this whole picture.
Yeah, I can start if you like. So
I need to say someone's name.
So the first thing I want to make really clear, and you've kind of touched on it there, Nick, is that being impactful, purposeful, or sustainable does not mean you stop making money. And I think there's a bit of a common misconception that perhaps stops people from stepping into their sustainability journey, which is that if you are making a profit, you cannot be a sustainable or an impact brand. But what being an impact brand means is understanding the positive and negative impacts that your business has on its triple bottom line, and that's people, planet, and prosperity, and to address each equally, which is what you were saying there, Nick. And actually, John Elkington, who coined the term triple bottom line, he actually recalled it a few years ago because he didn't agree with how it was being used as an accounting and reporting tool that still prioritized profit over everything else. And that's when the P kind of got rephrased from profit to prosperity, because it's not just about how many dividends we're going to get for our shareholders, but it's about a much wider economic impact that a business can have. For example, you know, if you are making money, you can employ people, you can pay your taxes, you can invest in innovation. There's so much more to prosperity than just, you know, paying shareholders. And I think if you want an example of why it's important to kind of have that equal value as much as you can, is looking at, I don't know if anybody's seen the Netflix documentary about the Boeing 737 MAX scandal, where Boeing literally prioritized profits over people's lives. And go and have a watch of it. It's horrendous how it impacted people's lives, and in a much lesser important way, people, the brand, long term. And that's a really, really extreme case. But the idea of being a responsible brand is to do business in a way that creates prosperity without negatively impacting on the planet, and in a way that benefits society for generations to come. And that's really, really good for business, because you rely, as a business, you rely on people and the planet, because if those things aren't healthy, then you're not going to have a business. You're not going to have the materials from the planet that make everything that we create as a business. You won't have the people to run your business. So it's still really important to have prosperity and have profit in your business, but it must not be your only goal. That's the bank calling.
Yeah. Charlie, just really quickly, you've got so many like really good stats and people's names and stuff. I'm always really terrible at remembering who said what, and I'm always like, there is a stat somewhere that said that. So thank you for being here to say those sorts of things that actually add some credibility to some of the stuff. No problem. Okay, we've got this is quite a good question. I think a lot of people that I know that are attending today would be interested in this one. And it's around how do you, and it follows on quite nicely. All of these questions are so great, but how do you become an impact brand when you're not yet profitable and you literally can't make a financial impact? So there is a lot of businesses out there, and startups and small businesses and side hustles that are built with the idea to make an impact. And I think I have an answer to this, but I would rather hear from you guys. If you don't have the ability to make a financial impact in whether it's in charitable donations or you know, whatever initiative that you might want to do, what are ways that people can build that into what they're doing? Alicia.
So I think it's a really interesting one, and for me, when we talk about those financial drivers, I like to kind of flip the conversation to value. So what's the value you can drive? Because ultimately, if we get really caught up in that profit element or that financial element, it can be fairly off-putting from the start. I mean, I do think there needs to be an honest conversation about actually, to be an impact brand, it is okay to build out a profitable business model. And I wish we'd encourage those conversations a bit more, because I still think there's that dialogue of, if I want to have an impact, I can't earn any money. And, you know, Nat and I, when we were setting up the business, we went through that same process, and we were like, but hang on a minute, if we need to make this sustainable, we need to drive a profit. And we work on a lot of accelerator programs and things like that. And there's almost like this embarrassment and shame about talking about profit. So I think there's something that needs to shift there, and that it's okay to explore that. But I also think it's about exploring what's the value you can drive in those other areas. So for example, coming back to when we dive into what purpose is and what those value drivers are, it's like, what can you do for society in this space? Like, how are you building out those communities? How are you spreading that message? How are you bringing people on board? Which is why purpose is so critical, because it helps do that. but also thinking beyond that, like what's the emotional value you can drive as well? Because again, you're bringing people on that journey, you're spreading that message and taking them on that journey with you. And I think through that, you can start to make that noise that you need to create that inevitably sort of helps drive you to that next stage of business. However, I would always say, and we do this with all our clients, don't shy away from the profit aspect of things and actually be smart about how you can bring profit into your business, because ultimately that will enable you to have longevity and be more sustainable as a business going forward. So I'm sort of on the fence of like, there is a lot of ways you can drive value, but at the very starting point, try and build that into your business model where you can. And it doesn't have to be huge profits at the beginning, but make sure that you can sustain yourself as a founder, as a team, and as a business leader.
Nice. Steph, anything to add on how you can drive impact without spending too much money?
Yeah, I think there's so many other initiatives that you can get involved with outside of financials. I mean, time, for example, and this is something that we measure as a business, is our number of hours that we volunteer to communities. So,
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, just kind of carrying on from Alicia, is time. There's so much that you can do with your evenings or afternoon that still have such an impact outside of financials.
Yeah, I think just to sort of follow up on all of this is like, as I think the disconnect between impact and financials as a conversation at the moment leads to this idea that you need to spend money to create an impact, rather than like bringing them all together and saying like, okay, we don't necessarily have loads of money, but we have so many other resources because we're an impact brand and because we're an impact team and because we have all of that really rich stuff like as a foundation for our business, that we can create impact in pretty much every interaction that we have with anyone. And then obviously you can bolster that with initiatives and things like that. So, I mean, I think just more broadly, the bigger conversation around what impact actually is and that definition, it's really easy to go to financials because it's literally a number and it's really easy to measure. So this brings us really nicely on to my next question. That was a really wonderful segue. How do you measure impact? I'm going to say, let's go, everyone should probably answer this one. So let's start with Steph, Charlie, Lena, Alicia.
Cool. So measurement for us in Hello Earth and how we measure kind of falls into two verticals. So one, we have engagement value. So obviously we have our strong positioning as to who we work with and the types of clients that we apply our skills to. So we actually have an internal scoring system that looks at, is this a client that we would take on based on our engagement values? And then the second are our business goals and KPIs. So we do still measure financials, top line growth, profitability. That is still a core KPI and measurement factor. But then we will also look at the number of hours that we dedicate to voluntary work on an annualized basis. And then we'll also look at what our offsetting and donation givebacks are. So they're KPIs that we set within the business. And obviously, and going back to the purpose and the profit piece, is the more profit that we can drive through the business, the more time that we can actually say, right, next month, let's take a 4-day off and the team can use that time to volunteer. So yeah, they're kind of like our core measurements.
I think I said Charlie next. Oh, you're on mute.
I did it. I knew I was going to do that. Sorry. This is a really interesting and important question when it comes to being an impact brand. So it probably needs way more time than we've got here today to discuss, but really, really briefly, to add to what Steph was saying. If we think about in marketing, especially, you know, why we measure things, we measure something to understand it and work out how we can improve it and get better results, right? So if we're thinking about that in terms of impact, we're thinking about the triple bottom line. And so those should be our priorities. And we should be looking at how we measure a brand or business's negative and positive impact on people, planet, and the planet. And how you do that, that's almost up to you. I know there's a lot of software that is available now, like ESG reporting, or you can have 100 Google Sheets. I just don't think you need to spend a lot of money and invest in a lot to measure impact. You just start with your purpose, think about what you want to achieve as a business, remembering that those goals need to be achievable. why you want to achieve it and what needs to happen for you to achieve it, and then work out the metrics that matter to achieving your purpose, and just start measuring them, because the sooner you start measuring your impact, the sooner you can start reducing your negative impact and increasing your positive impact.
Yeah, I would agree, definitely. Like, obviously we'll look at things like our charity donations and the waste averted and life change and all of that. But it is, if you look at the impact more broadly, like we talked about before, that it's not necessarily always linked to money and donations and such. And in our case, I think the biggest impact that we've had is that we basically changed the whole industry of period products. Before us, there was only tampons and pads, and there was no reusables in any supermarket period product aisles. And now there is, and it's not always the Moon Cup. It's often a different brand, but it's there. The alternative is there, and that is just massive impact that we've had. And it's not, obviously, it's taken a lot of work, but it's not just, chucking money into something. It is the kind of work and the conversations and that noise that you had to make to kind of break that taboo and force Tampax to create their own eco-friendly products, basically.
And sorry, I'm just jumping in. On that, I think that has so much more meaning than donations and financials, because that is something, that's a product category fit, and that's making a difference with something outside of money, which I think has such bigger meaning, and it is far more authentic.
But also harder to measure.
I think that's a really interesting one as well, in terms of there's two parts to this, of like what you measure and then how you measure it as well. And so what's really important for us is that we always encourage our clients to have multiple data points, whether that's through, quantitative surveys, so you get those data points, but also that anecdotal feedback. Keep speaking to your customers, keep speaking to your partners, your communities, and your own people as well, because then you can really understand the impact you're having from that perspective. But I think also there's an important framework where, when we talk about impact, measuring it becomes so much more important. And what we find at the Future Kind Collective is that we really need to prove that having a strong purpose and a strong culture can really shift the dial on your impact. So we often use a framework with our clients, which we designed based around your purpose, vision, mission, and values, and your culture. And then we attach those and align those to your OKRs, so your objectives and your key results, so that you can really see that alignment across your strategy, and it includes those elements in what you would normally just focus on in terms of financial metrics or customer metrics. It's the more holistic piece, both internally and externally too.
Yeah, I think I think as we move into this phase of society, as we're moving towards more impact brands and people taking these sorts of things much more seriously, whether that's for business reasons or for the fact that that's just genuinely what they want to achieve in their impact in the world, this will become clearer for people that it's not a one size fits all, like money or profit or those sorts of metrics that we've sort of put into society for now, because that's easy for people to understand, but there's nuance and context that is required for every individual case in this scenario, and every impact brand that I can think of would have different versions of what impact looks like for them, but it's not easy for the world to understand. So I think there's going to be some time and education that's required in the market to understand why those things are important. And I think we see it in just ESG, impact investing, retail investing even. People don't really understand what impact those things are still having, because there's no clear way for people to understand what they actually do. So it's a tough one, I think, to move forward with. But I think you've got to start with really clear understanding of what it is you're trying to achieve and what impact you're trying to have, and then measure from there. Okay, so I'm going to say let's leave it there with the questions. We've got about 10 minutes left, and it would be really great to do some Q&A and see how we all sweat under the pressure of answering questions that we haven't prepared for. But before I do that, I just want to do a quick, we're going to be continuing these conversations in our impact community after this. So little plug here. There's going to be a little pop-up that comes up in the corner of your screen. Please do request to join our impact community, and we'll continue these conversations there. And also we'll put snippets of this webinar in there so that people can continue talking about this sort of stuff, and we can share lots of wonderful insights. Okay, Q&A. Let's have a look in the chat. We've got one here from Daniel, who also said we're sort of talking about this now, but let's take it. So it says, on the point of prosperity, how can we effectively communicate that our company is impact first and that the profitability is essential in order to facilitate that impact? So we've sort of said that that's what we need to do, but how can we communicate that? Charlie, do you want to talk about this? I think you sort of mentioned prosperity first. So
yeah, I mean, is it Daniel asking the question? If you're asking a logistical sense of how you communicate it across your channels, you know, I think that's up to you, but what it has to be is authentic. So it all, I can't bang on about it, but it all comes down to making sure you've got a true, authentic purpose embedded into your business. Sorry, I can see it on the point of prosperity.
Yeah, I just worked out how I can do that. That's quite cool, isn't
it? So authenticity is important to start off with, and then evidence-based. So if you're measuring your impact and you're showing that your impact is changing, you're becoming more positively impactful, then you know that's something you want to shout about. And I think this is the thing, when the purpose embedded into your business and it's so true to your personal purpose as well, it's something really easy to talk about and really easy to communicate. And when you're seeing a positive change happening because of the work that you're doing, that's something you're going to want to shout about, and you're going to want to do that on every channel possibly available to you. So I think, yeah, authenticity, evidence-based, and then just get out and shout about it.
Amazing. Does anyone else have anything to add on that one?
I guess it also depends who you're communicating it. Like if you're communicating it internally in your business, I mean, our business is employer owned, so it is in all of our interests that the company makes a profit. And we talk about finances, not like all the time, but you know, everyone who works in the company is aware how we're doing financially. And if you're thinking kind of externally, I think people understand that you need to, you know, sustain yourself and make some money to continue your existence, and, you know, paying living wage and all that stuff that, you know, and paying your suppliers and everyone you work with. I think people do understand that you do need to make money to be around, basically.
Yeah, agreed. There's a quick follow-up from Mo. I'm going to whack it up here for Lena. What was the process of your business becoming employee-owned? Starting the journey themselves.
It's basically our founder. She's called Sue. She founded Mooncup 20 years ago, like I mentioned. And she started to plan her retirement about 5 years ago, might be a bit more now. And she didn't want to sell the Mooncup to some big corporation and or make it a public company. So she was kind of exploring ways of how she could kind of keep the spirit of Mooncup alive when she exits the business. And she chose to go employer owned, and she basically trained up directors from within the company. And it is quite a complex model, but there are a lot of companies who are very successful with it. And there's like John Lewis is employer owned. There's loads of major corporations as well. And there's employer ownership organization as well. They have a great website, and there's a lot of information there about it as well, if you're interested in finding out more.
And that's another example of like how you can have an impact with your team, like, and engaging them on that journey with creating impact is actually by giving them the opportunity to be the business as well as just employed by them. Okay, wait, hold on. Let me find other questions. I think this one was within the context of speaking about this. So Mo, I might need some more context to this question, but it says, Stephanie, what if more time invested in my business equals more positive impact to the world's largest issues? Why split profit and impact if profit becomes a means to drive more impact?
Good question. Yeah. I mean, I think going back to earlier when I was talking about what impact means to me, that impact is the output of your purpose. And I think ultimately, if your business purpose is really refined and that is impacting the world's largest issues, then naturally your impact will be an output of that. And I definitely don't think we should be splitting profit and impact. I think one enables the other. It makes it a lot easier for you to drive your impact if you have that profit within the business to support it. And then going back to the question before, I think some of the things where we can look at impact is, it's the team, it's the living wages, it's being able to increase that type of thing. It's adding financial security within the business. So if hard times do hit, you have that level of cash flow to support the business through those rougher times. So I think there's definitely not a one size fits all. It's finding the purpose for your business and then measuring what you find impactful. And yeah, I guess does that answer your question?
Amazing. I think Mo said thanks, or maybe that was Talina. Yes, he says yes, thank you. So Jane's asked, this is quite a specific one. Actually, this is one of the questions we kind of missed because I was worried about time. But I'm going to wrap this up into a bigger question, if that's okay, Jane. Jane's asked, she's working with a number of groups and institutions to mentor and volunteer / fundraise annually in Bristol. Can you recommend a way to succinctly wrap these efforts up on my website / LinkedIn? I'm going to build that into a bigger question, which is how do you market your impact, or how do you communicate your impact, or how do you include impact into your marketing and communications efforts? Is probably a better way to ask that question. So the marketers amongst us, Steph, Lena, first of all, would be great to hear from you on how we market impact brands.
Cool. Yeah. So I think a definition of marketing is probably good to get clear. So I would say that is the direct line or the storytelling piece between brand and consumers. And with purpose and impact playing a bigger role in that, I think the brand story is now far more integrated than it probably ever has been. This will include like business operations of a business. That definitely has a serious role in playing a part in the bigger picture and ultimately where the brand is rooted from. So for example, HR, supply chains, operations, like business values, they all play a role in developing that brand. And in order to become, I guess, a real impact brand, all business departments need to be working together on what that bigger picture looks like. So then marketing can sell that story. And I think that's a really exciting time for brands because it's an opportunity to be very transparent and authentic about what you're doing behind the scenes in order to tell the story to your consumers, because ultimately that is what they're going to be buying into.
Yeah, and I guess maybe I can just add a bit from the kind of D2C point of view, and kind of on the ground what we think what we've seen is working quite well. I mean, we are still educating people about plastics and periods. There was just a few months ago a study came through and showed that only 1/3 of the women in the UK are aware that tampons and pads has got loads of plastic in them. So and we're still educating people about that, and stats work quite well as long as you don't try on people on stats to kind of reminding them that, you know, you're going to be on your period for 6.5 years in your life. It's like big numbers like that obviously make you think and open your eyes and consider the waste that you create. And I think it's also really important, and especially with products, I suppose, also with services, that you can show that your sustainable alternative is as good or better than the original less ethical product or service, because as much as we would like to think that people are happy to take the green away, most of us are really happy to do it if it's going to be a practical and a good way as well. So I think make sure that you really highlight the reviews, the good reviews that you get, and utilize that kind of word of mouth thing. And I think, like with all marketing, just be kind of bold and don't be boring. So I think that's like try to shorten your comms and be interesting to people, because we are all just drowning on advertising and commercial messages everywhere. So be it ethical or non-ethical brand, I think it's just, yeah, that's what you have to do.
Important. Okay, I have nearly run out of time. I thought I was doing really well there on time, and now we've got 30 seconds left, and I'm conscious that lots of people will have to go off to other meetings and things like that. We have had just a flurry of questions. So what I'm going to suggest is I will post all of these questions into our community chat. Everyone here is on that, so if we continue those conversations there, that would be amazing. And hopefully we can continue those conversations for much longer as well, and it will open up lots of different avenues of discussion. It would be great, I don't know, maybe to just like do a little wrap up. I don't know if anyone has any sort of final comments or anything like that about how they can contact you. I've added everyone's LinkedIn onto the chat, but if there's anything everyone wants to close with, then please do. Let's go, Steph, Charlie, Lena, Alicia.
Yeah, awesome. So yeah, obviously my LinkedIn is there, but if you would like to speak to me about B Corp or anything marketing related, what our agency is helloearthagency.com. So yeah, please feel free to reach out. I've just seen a message from Heather. Hi, Heather. So yeah, we can chat. Just reach out to me.
Yes, my LinkedIn is there, but if you would like to be a guest on the podcast, Easy Being Green's Lessons in Sustainable Business, please reach out to me. The website is easybeingreenpodcast.com, and I'm also on social media as well.
Yeah, my LinkedIn is there as well for anyone who wants to connect. And I would just say, like, when you're choosing your suppliers, people you work with, businesses you work with, just keep the impact in mind there, because the more of us choose ethical, sustainable businesses to work with, the more we're supporting that kind of work. So that's your impact, start of your impact there.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good reminder for all of us, because we often look inwards, but actually who we're working with and how we work with others is just as important. Alicia,
thanks. And I just want to say thank you for inviting me to be part of this. I think I've had goosebumps and wanted to like applaud everyone's answers, but I think what it really demonstrates is like when you really lean into being an impact brand, the community around you is phenomenal, and that's what we've found since starting our business. So although it can feel tough at times to take this journey, I just want to say lean into that community, reach out to people, because as you hopefully will see today, it's the most brilliant group of people with lots of great advice who want to help each other out. Handily, my co-founder has been on the call, so did put our website in earlier, but it is www.thefuturekind.co. But it's great to be part of an amazing community like this of people doing great things. So thanks a lot.
There we are. Nat's put it in again for you. Amazing. So yeah, my wrap up would basically be join the impact community that we're building. We've got some really great people in there, and there's some really great conversations starting. So we'll continue those in there. Also, if there are any brands on the call who are currently advertising and looking to build impact into their advertising, we're currently speaking to launch partners, and we have loads of really awesome added value impact related benefits attached to that. So shout out to me, and the same for agencies. We've got agency partner program that we're building at the moment. So yeah, little plug there for that, but I feel like I'm allowed to do that. So yeah, and just a massive thank you to Steph, Charlie, Lena, and Alicia, because you are literally amazing, and I am in awe of all of your answers. And I feel like I sound silly, so it's been really great to chat to you, and I'm looking forward to sharing this with everyone who couldn't make it, and also hopefully some more stuff over socials and things like that. And I think we've lost Charlie, so she's gone. But yeah. Thank you so much. And I actually have no idea how to end the session. So
thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
End session. Okay, we might all disappear. So thank you so much. And our amazing.
Thanks, everyone.
audience.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.